Hi everybody, Jordan from TakeLessons.com. Today in this video we're going to cover 5 technique tips to help you get started on piano. Let's jump right in. I will see you at the keyboard. Okay, technique tip number 1 is posture. The first thing we want to do before we approach our instrument is make sure we have proper posture. What I tell all of my students is that they should be tall and relaxed. I don't tell my students to sit up straight. I think that implies too much unnecessary stiffness and tension. So I say tall and relaxed. It may help you to imagine that you're from the tallest point of your head, that you're hanging from a string, just kind of sinking down into the floor, feet flat, ready to go. So along with this, breathing is very important. There's a tendency sometimes in beginners to hold your breath in the middle of a phrase. We want to avoid that. Again, it's unnecessary. It's not helping us play. We want to get more results with less effort. So we want to just breathe in a normal, relaxed fashion. Technique tip number 2 is sitting down at the piano and being the correct distance away from the keyboard. So assuming we're tall and relaxed and we have good posture, we want to place our hands on the keys with our middle fingertips toward the edge of the black keys and our thumb resting right toward the edge of the white keys there. Now, if we are the correct distance away from the keyboard, then if you look at your upper arm between your shoulder and elbow, it should be pretty much straight up and down with the floor. Maybe a little bit forward, depending on what you're playing. There might be slight adjustments happening. But basically, we don't want to be crowded. We don't want to be too close to the piano and have our elbows shoved back. And we don't want to be so far away that we engage any of the muscles on the tops of our hands and wrists and shoulders. Again, avoiding unnecessary tension and bad habits that are going to hold us back. So, tall, relaxed posture, being the proper distance away from the keys is very important. And now our next technique tip involves the wrists. And basically the rule is we want flat wrists, but we want to look at that from 2 directions. The overhead view, we want to make sure our wrists are heading straight out. No, not too much bend here or here. We definitely don't want this part of the wrist sticking out toward the middle. And especially during scales later on, we want to make sure we're not doing any bending of the wrist out this way. So just from that overhead view, making sure our wrists straight ahead. Now the other way we want to keep flat wrists is this forward-backward motion here. We don't want to have our hands too low. Again, this kind of goes back a little bit to being the correct distance and having good posture and a good height at the keyboard, but making sure that we're able to have that flat wrist there, no bend. Technique tip number 4 is, assuming this is flat, we want to really be careful about this last fingertip here. This joint here is a tricky one because sometimes in those fingers in the middle, we don't realize that we're bending our fingers backwards to play. You want to be careful not to do this. Just as an experiment, go ahead and push your fingers together, and you'll notice there's a lot of give there before it stops. It's kind of mushy. If you pull this way with the fingers bent forward, you'll see there's a lot of strength there. There's very little or no give. And that translates into your piano playing. When you want to deliver something with a lot of intensity and emotion, but you have this going on, you have that little mushiness that's kind of you have to compensate for, eventually that can cause you problems in your hand. That can cause you pain. and it can hold you back in your practicing. So just in general, you want to make things as easy as possible. Again, more results, less effort. So keeping each fingertip bent forward. Now, technique tip number 5 is about the thumbs. Now, we're going to get into a lot more detail about this particular technique when it comes to scales. But just as a quick overview, with the thumb action, when you're moving the thumb, you want it to be nice and flexible. And basically, you just don't want it to affect technique tips number 3 and 4. You don't want it to affect the wrist, and you don't want it to affect the last fingertip here. So as we get into scales, we will talk about how to get that thumb shifting in a way that's nice and flexible. But for now, most of what we're going to be playing is just in one position. So just stay flexible, not too tense, and we don't want to have the thumb motion affect our wrists or our fingertips. So keeping those bent forward. So just a quick overview. Posture and breathing should be tall and relaxed. You want to be the correct distance from the piano with your upper arm straight up and down, perpendicular to the floor. You want to have flat wrists from 2 angles. And you want your fingertips all bent in a forward fashion. Keep the thumbs flexible. Don't let the thumb motion ruin any of the other good habits you set up. So at the end of most of these videos, I'll try and throw in a quiz or something to test you or some sort of practical assignment. With tips like these, really, you just kind of have to check back in once in a while and test yourself and go back to a song and say, hey, wait a second, how is my posture? How is my breathing? How is, just double check all those little things, and you may find you might accidentally be doing something like that. But try to catch it now. Try to catch it early. Don't wait too long to come back to these concepts. You really want to build up this checklist of 5 things so that you do it every single time you play and make it a good habit.